Hello everybody, Zachary Wheeler here, and welcome to our first video in a new YouTube series where I will be looking at Marvel Comics over the past 5 years. Now they have changed in order to better represent the ever-growing political landscape and a more diverse cast of minority characters. For this video, we will go over a brief history of Marvel Comics and how the real world has forced the medium to constantly evolve and adapt since its conception, times comics have mirrored real-world events in their stories, and where the genre stands today. The relationship between comics and politics is not a new trend. Marvel Studios first reached mainstream popularity back in the 1940s, thanks to the release of Captain America during the Second World War. His story depicted America's fight against Hitler and the Nazi army, and was obviously meant to draw support for the war. Sometimes the Captain would even encourage readers to buy war bonds, or else the nation might lose to the terror. Another of Marvel's more popular comics during their rise was the X-Men, whose stories depicted the struggles within our nation. The X-Men was a comic that detailed the dangers of segregation and racism by showing a group of heroes whose society feared and hated because of their differences. The X-Men were created to showcase the prejudice and pain minorities suffered because of the social landscape in the nation. Over the years, Marvel would continue to receive inspiration from the real world that they would use to drive their stories forward, such as depicting the moon landing, exploring the implication and dangers of the Russian Cold War, and even showing the brutal and tragic depictions of the war in Vietnam through the life of the anti-hero Frank Castle, also known as the Punisher. Marvel never would shy away from making their art socially relevant. Marvel would use its voice alongside its growing popularity to begin encouraging fans to also be aware of the world around them, by running campaigns every few years about the importance of voting and other social movements at the time. As the genre continued to grow, comics would also choose to represent real-world leaders within their pages, with United States presidents making common cameos throughout the year. President Richard Nixon was the first to start this trend, but more recent presidents such as Bill Clinton, George W. Bush Jr., and Barack Obama have also been given the same honor. Even more recently, President Trump has been made into the pages of a comic book, but more as a parody than anything else. Over the years, Marvel Comics have become a personification of the real world, mirroring shifts and controversies prominent in our society today. Such as when the 9/11 attacks occurred, Marvel chose to release special issues in order to honor the lives lost and showcase heroes and villains alike mourning the act of senseless violence. These special issues gained praise from the public, as it also took special care to acknowledge the first responders and other volunteers on the ground as the real heroes in this situation. When the Patriot arose just a few years later, Marvel released their now award-winning series Civil War. This arc focused on what was known as the Superhero Registration Act, which forced heroes to sign up as government employees. The series shows heroes taking two sides of the issue. On one side, claiming the need to ensure responsibility and the safety of everyday citizens, and the other, arguing the rights of privacy and the dangers of giving government too much control. This leads us to the comic book landscape of the past few years, in which Marvel Studios realized the need for a more diverse class so to better represent their modern audience. To do this, Marvel launched the Secret War crossover event, where all of Marvel Comics would come to an end and then be rebooted to give new readers a place to join in and introduce new and exciting characters. Secret War was the culmination of an age of Marvel Comics and the beginning of something new. When the dust would finally settle, next to Marvel's classic heroes stood a new diverse roster, ready to provide hope for a modern world. Some of the most popular examples from this shift would be Moondragon, a young autistic girl who has the power to create anything she dreams of, and Miles Morales, a young Hispanic man who took up the mantle of Spider-Man after the tragic death of Peter Parker. But it wasn't just a more racially diverse cast Marvel introduced in recent years. In 2015, Marvel headlined their first gay wedding to thank and acknowledge their LGBTQ audience. They also began to provide more positive female superheroes that showcase strong and independent women who were no longer sexualized as much. Over the next few videos, we will take a closer look at some of the more popular characters that make up Marvel's new roster, and how they provide a more positive representation for a diverse set of people. Also, we will take a closer look at how Marvel Comics addressed the election of Donald Trump and the new political landscape through their story Secret Empire. But now that we understand where Marvel Comics are and how they got there, it's time we look more closely at where they're going and what it means in the bigger picture. And for that, we're going to need more time. So I'll see you guys in the next video where we take a more close look at some of the new characters Marvel's introduced.